In 2016, the British Columbia provincial government introduced the Water Sustainability Act, or WSA, which requires authorization for diversion, storage, and use of water from a stream or aquifer for non-household purposes. There are some exemptions to this requirement specific to mining operations, depending on a number of different factors, including the water type and mining activity. The ambiguity in defining each water type and its requirements, as well as reconciling the various regulations, has led to confusion for mine operators who are unsure about whether they require an authorization for their specific mine project or not. Waterline Resources offers groundwater authorization services to mine operations across British Columbia. Since 2016, we have collaborated with the provincial government to seek clarity on the WSA requirements on behalf of our clients, and have submitted license applications for over 250 existing use wells for groundwater users across the province. In this video, we'll discuss the WSA and how it affects mines in BC. For more information, refer to the provincial government's information bulletin or give us a call to discuss the requirements for your specific project. The Water Sustainability Act is administered by the Ministry of Forests, Lands, Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development, or FLNRO RD. It came into force on February 29, 2016, and it introduced a number of changes to water management in BC, including mandatory authorization of non-domestic groundwater use. For mines, there are some instances when an authorization under the WSA is required, and others where it is not. An authorization is required for diversion and use of groundwater and surface water at a mine site. This applies whether the water is diverted or used from a stream or an aquifer outside the mine boundaries and then brought into the mine, or used from within the mine boundaries, including water passively collected by drainage works within the mine site. The water use purpose could include mine dewatering, camp water supply, construction, dust control, washing, or processing purposes. An authorization can be applied for in the form of a longer-term water license under Section 9 of the WSA, or a short-term use approval under Section 10 of the WSA. Once approved, the duration of a water license could be up to 30 years, as per Section 23 of the WSA. The duration of the license is subject to consultation with stakeholders during the application process and ongoing performance monitoring of the streams and aquifers. The duration of a water approval is limited to 24 months. However, the information requirements and review timelines to obtain the approval may be quicker. Note that in addition to WSA requirements, the Environmental Management Act, or EMA, requires mines to collect and treat mine contact water. An authorization is also required for the active diversion of water to prevent it from entering a mine site. This includes the diversion of stream water away from or around the mine site. It also includes the diversion of groundwater using works such as ditches or dewatering wells to prevent it from seeping into the mine or actively dewatering prior to mining. The removal of nuisance groundwater from a mine is exempt from requiring authorization under the WSA as per Section 34.1 of the Water Sustainability Regulation, or WSR. In other words, if you are actively mining and groundwater infiltrates your mine, that's considered nuisance groundwater and is typically discharged from the mine using sumps in a pit or other mine drainage works. Removal of nuisance groundwater is not required to have a WSA authorization, provided that there is no use of the nuisance water and the discharge water does not adversely affect the receiving environment. Note that while an authorization under the WSA is not required in this scenario, the discharge of water from a mine will still continue to be regulated under the Environmental Management Act. There are some exemptions for mineral exploration activities or placer mining activities and their associated camps. These exemptions are subject to several rules and caveats as outlined in Section 34.3 and 34.4 of the WSR. If it is established that a new or existing mine site requires or will require a groundwater license, there are two different types of groundwater licenses that can be applied for, an existing use license and a new use license. Waterline's video on groundwater licensing explains the difference between the two licenses, but here are some important points to note as it relates to mining operations. Groundwater users that were using the water when the WSA came into force on February 29, 2016, are required to submit an existing use application by March 1, 2022, to continue using water beyond that date. To apply for an existing use license, at a minimum you will require information on your well and waterworks infrastructure, maps and drawings, and water use history. As discussed previously, Waterline has submitted license applications for over 250 existing use wells on behalf of groundwater users across the province. Any groundwater use after February 29, 2016 is considered new use. The application for new use groundwater licenses is more involved and may require a technical assessment to be conducted by a qualified professional with competency in hydrogeology. The provincial government has a guidance document that informs applicants about whether a technical assessment is required to support their application, and if so, the appropriate level of detail required. Contact Waterline if you'd like more information on this process. Proponents risk being in non-compliance with the Act if they use the water before obtaining authorization. Waterline can help mines with the requirements of the technical assessment, including consultations with the various regulatory agencies to confirm licensing requirements, desktop-based studies, and specific field-based testing procedures. Waterline recognizes there is ambiguity in defining each water type and its requirements, as well as reconciling the various regulations. If it's unclear to you whether a water authorization is required for your existing or proposed operation, give Waterline a call today. We'll discuss how we can help you obtain water security for your specific project. Waterline recommends considering the WSA authorization requirements as early as possible in your project timeline because the review process for new use groundwater applications could take several months to a year, depending on project-specific circumstances. The timeline for a decision on an application is subject to the availability of ministry staff, various stakeholders reviewing the application, including Indigenous communities. Please let us know by calling or emailing us if you have any questions, and we'll be more than happy to help.